Hey y'all, my name is Jeremy. Welcome to the channel. I recently started the 100 Days of Code challenge to kind of help motivate me to actually finish learning Elixir and actually start building things with the Elixir. So today was day 3 and I actually made it all the way through the basic section in ElixirSchool.com. That's as far as I've ever made it, and hopefully tomorrow I can start maybe with a code war challenge or actually building some kind of CLI application. So for this video, I just wanted to run through what I learned today in the hour of coding for the challenge. Let's go ahead and get started with that. So first thing that I went through was testing today. What I noticed with that, the first thing is XUnit. So that's built into the Elixir language, and I will probably be just sticking with that, at least to start off with. Over the years, I've kind of stopped wanting to add dependencies and just use what is given to me with the language or the framework. So there's something to be said with that. Yeah, XUnit looks like it just kind of works like any other testing framework. You have your asserts, so you just have a couple of testers and everything here, and those just evaluate to true or false. Looks like there's not much to it. It gives you everything you need to get some basic tests written. It's pretty awesome. But the next big thing that I kind of learned from Elixir School was this test mocks section. One thing kind of stood out to me. Let's see if I can find it here. Yeah, using mock as a noun instead of a verb. So instead of, hey, I'm going to mock Axios, it's more of, hey, let's bring in this mock for Axios. And I think Jest kind of does the same thing. So mocking out modules. I actually started doing this in my GitHub action that I just created, which is what I worked on the last part of the hour for today's 100 Days of Code. I like this idea, and I think the idea behind it, or the concept that it's trying to get to, is just have clear boundaries when you're writing code. So you don't kind of couple, because once you start coupling your code, then when you want to test X, you also have to test Y together, and it becomes more of an integration test. So having clear boundaries and being able to just insert a mock when you need it, it's really nice, and it's not something that really clicked for me until a few years into software development. Next up was comprehensions. So with comprehensions, pretty much enums, it looks like just to iterate over through it, kind of like a for each in JavaScript or an each in Ruby. You just use a for, use this little backwards stabby arrow thing, kind of take variables or iterate through your variables in your enum. But other than that, it's like any other language. Pretty much once you get used to the syntax. Okay, so the one thing I thought was really cool was, instead of doing nested for loops, you kind of just write your comprehensions all in one line, which is a neat little syntax for writing the code. So I appreciate that. So not only just like regular comprehensions or generators, Elixir also has an idea of filters. So the first one we're going to do for X in numbers 1 through 10, and then only if the number is even, we're going to actually do our function. And you can have multiple of these as well. Pretty neat little syntax. I can see where that'll be useful. The last part of comprehensions was just into, so you can kind of cast a keyword list or a map into something else. Okay, strings. Not really going to go much into these. There's graphemes, and code points. Probably will never use those. Probably will never use character lists. I think I've only used character lists maybe one time in the last 6 years of software development. Stick to strings, and I'm not saying I know everything about strings, but there's not much you can do with them. Take the length, replace inside of it, duplicate. It's a cool little string function. And then there's also split. But that was it for strings. Next was just date and time. So it's kind of interesting. You have time returns a time struct, and structs are kind of like interfaces in TypeScript. They're just a well-defined way of managing data. So it's not an object per se. Not know much about it yet. They feel kind of similar to just a plain JSON object without any kind of methods to go along with it. It's just a key value store with a set keys to go with it. And so we also have date, which obviously doesn't have time with it. The one that I thought was the funniest and something that will also be pretty much useless is a naive date time. So this just lacks a time zone support. I don't know when you would actually want to use that. If you do know why you would use a naive date time, leave a comment below, let me know. Love to learn from you guys. Last one is date time. Then the last bit of this section just kind of mentioned a couple of other libraries that you might want to add, timex, calendar, just in case you need a little bit more out of date times in Elixir. Next up, I had custom mix task. So if you're used to Ruby on Rails, it's kind of similar to a rake task. When you're creating a mix task, it goes into the lib mix tasks directory. Throw it in there, you create a module, and then you include the mix task macro, and that gives you everything you need to run the task. And so what is ran is the run function. So whatever's inside the run function is called whenever you run the mix task. The only other thing to know about these, very similar to rake task in Rails, is they do not load all of your application's dependencies and everything. So if you need to load Ecto, your connection to the database, or anything else, you need to run mix task, run app start. And the last thing I went over today was the IEX helpers module, the REPL for Elixir. It's always nice to have this kind of stuff built in. So yeah, you automatically get autocomplete. So all you have to do is press tab and it'll give you all the methods or all the functions that are available for that module. You can configure IEX, so if there's a .IEX file, it will load that first whenever you go into the REPL, and you can add custom helpers in there or go ahead and alias certain ecto schemas or whatever you need. The next thing is the H helper function. So since documentation is baked into Elixir, it was thought of as part of the language. Everything is pretty well documented, and you can see that straight from the REPL. All you have to do is do H and then the module name or the module and function with the arity, and it just spits out all the information you need there. Another good one to know about in IEX is the R function. And so what that'll do is recompile whatever module you give it. So if you go into VS Code and you change a part of the module inside of IEX, you have to recompile that module. It gets compiled down into Erlang. It's good to go. So yeah, I think that was pretty much it. Yep, so that was it for day 3 of the 100 days of code. Like I said, I did work on my GitHub action for a little bit just to try and figure out what's going on, but I think it's just how I'm console logging everything. I think I need to just go back and look at that. So I'll probably do that tomorrow, and maybe I'll put it up on YouTube. Anyway, if you want to follow me on Twitter, the link will be down in the description. We'll see you next time. Later.